Hi, I'm Jeff. I'm down here at the TRQ Research and Development Center, where we test all of our parts on our fleet of vehicles. Today, I'm going to show you how to do rear brakes on this 2010 Toyota Rav4. Let's get started. All right, so we're going to get started by loosening up these lug nuts while the wheel is still on the ground to make sure it doesn't start spinning on us. So we're just going to go ahead, loosen them up. These are 21 millimeter lug nuts, and we're just loosening them up with this breaker bar. Just go around. So now that we've got the lug nuts loosened up, we're going to bring the vehicle up into the air, which for us is on a lift. For you, it might be on the ground with the jack and jack stands. And then we're just going to go ahead and take the lug nuts all the way off. So we've got all the lug nuts off. I left one on here because the wheel is a little stuck on. That happens pretty often. So what we're going to have to do first, you can try just kind of pounding around the wheel. Sometimes that'll shake it off. If you're close to the ground, you can give it a kick. Another thing you can try is a hammer. Go with a rubber mallet if you have one. That way you don't damage the wheel if you mishit. And then we're just going to kind of start tapping around the edge and then maybe go from behind if we have to. There you go. All right, so now we've got that loose, we can just go ahead and take off this last lug nut and just slide the wheel right off. We're going to loosen these 14 millimeter slider bolts. We're just going to start by breaking them free with a wrench. That came off nice and easy. Sometimes if they're a little hard to get off, you can give them a little tap on the end of the wrench, and that should break them free. But these ones came off pretty nicely. Take this one off. I'm going to take this one off, and in my hand I'm going to have ready a piece of wire or a hook or something so that we can hang the caliper on the suspension or something like that so that we don't put any tension on the brake hose. Looks like these are going to come right off. Sometimes you might have to get a little rough with those to get them off if the pads are rusted up or something. Then we're going to go ahead and just take out the pads. These ones came out nice and easy. If you're having trouble getting yours out, you can get in there and pry them out with a screwdriver, or just take them out with the caliper bracket and tap them out later. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and loosen up these two 17 millimeter bolts, and these are the bolts that hold the caliper bracket to the wheel knuckle. So the same thing, we're just going to grab a wrench, give it a little twist. These ones are on here a little harder. So we're going to try, there we go. Give it a little punch. Yep, okay, then we'll switch over to the ratchet. Yep, just get these bolts out. And this should come right off. So, since this is the rear, this vehicle has parking brake shoes inside the rotor. So a lot of times, it's going to be a little too tough to get it off without doing a little adjusting. So what we're going to do is we're going to go right here. This is just a little boot to seal the hole for the adjuster. I'm going to pull it out with a screwdriver. So then the adjuster we're going to have to find, it's probably at the bottom. I don't know for sure on this one, so we're just going to have to try and turn the wheel. There you go. We can take a look inside. You're going to want to find a little wheel with some like gear cogs, and that's going to be the wheel that you turn to either loosen or tighten the adjuster. So I'm going to take my flat blade screwdriver, and we're going to get in here and start turning the wheel. I don't actually know which direction to turn it to loosen it, so I'm just going to spin it, give it a couple turns in one direction, check the wheel, see if it's any looser or tighter, and then go on from there. So really all you want to do is just get the blade of the screwdriver hooked on one of the cogs, and you can use the rotor as leverage. Just kind of push it up. Give it a spin. All right, that seems a little tighter than it was before, so I'm going to start going the other direction. Another good clue that you're going in the right direction is it should get a little easier to spin the looser it gets, because there's less tension on the screw. So now we can go ahead and try and just pull this off. I think this one might not give us too much of a fight. Ah, there you go. While we've got the rotor off, now it's a great time to just take a look at the parking brake shoes and the springs and all the hardware in there. We're not going to give them too much attention right now because that's not what we're here for. But it's just a good time to take a look, make sure everything looks in order, give it a little bit of a cleanup because these things accumulate dust from the shoes over time. Now is also a great time, if you haven't before, put on some safety glasses because some of this stuff might spray back and get you in the eye. You can try to get in here with a brush if you need to. These don't look too bad, so we're not going to do that. And then while you're at it, you can also spray down the wheel hub. Try to get off any little bits of rust that may be hanging on there. It'll keep the wheel from sticking the next time you need to take it off. And also it's going to keep the engagement between the wheel and the hub nice and smooth and even, so you don't get any sort of alignment or wobbly wheel issues. Okay, so we'll do a little comparison here. Here's the rotor and pads that we just took off this Toyota. Over here we have some brand new TRQ rotors and pads. These rotors come cross-drilled and slotted for extra heat dissipation. You can also get them in a standard smooth style. We'll take a look at these pads here, and you can see that they are an exact fit match. TRQ pads come with the backing shims. We can take a look at the pad surface. We've got the groove to clear out dust. So as you can see, these brand new TRQ parts are an exact match to the parts we just took off our vehicle, and that makes them a great choice for aftermarket parts to put on your vehicle. So anytime you take your caliper off, it's always a good idea to service the bracket, especially the sliders. As you can see, these ones don't really want to move very much, and these need to slide in and out freely, or else you're going to start to get uneven wear, or your pads are going to stick, and then they're going to heat up and warp your rotors. All right, so we're going to go ahead and pull out these sliders. When you take them out, make sure to take a look at the end. Sometimes one will have a rubber bushing or O-ring or something like that on the end, and the other one won't. And you want to make sure they go back in the same place. These ones look identical, so that makes things a little bit easier for us. Go ahead and grab a towel, give it a little spray, the brake cleaner. We're just going to clean this off. While you're cleaning them off, you want to take a look at this groove right here, because this is the groove that the boot sits on, so you want to make sure that that's clean and clear of any debris too. You can also give them a quick scrub with a wire brush if there's a lot of stuff in there. Next, you're going to want to take out the boots. They should come out pretty easily. Be very careful not to rip them. You want to take a look at these and look for any rips or tears, because they're keeping the dust and moisture outside of the sliders and keep them sliding smoothly. So we're also going to want to clean out any old grease out of the boots, because it might be holding some dust or rust or whatever. So we're just going to give it a quick spray with the brake cleaner. Then we're going to go ahead and clean out the slider channel, because there could be some dirt or rust or old sticky grease or something in there. So same way, we're just going to give it a little spray with the brake clean. And then these we can go ahead and take a board brush. Just get in there. All right, and then after you've given both sides a good scrub, you can just go ahead, a little bit more brake clean, rinse it out. I think that looks pretty good. And then we want to go ahead and clean both surfaces of these brake tins. We'll start with this surface while they're here. Give a little spray. Scrub it with a brush. What we want to do here is clean away any rust or debris that might prevent the pads from sliding freely. This is the area where you want your pads to be able to slide forward and backwards as you're using the brakes. Then we can just go ahead and carefully pry these off. Just like that. Like that. And then we're going to go ahead and clean the backside also. And then also you're going to want to just clean off these grooves here where the pad tins sit. We're going to take a little bit of brake grease and just do a nice thin layer right here where those tins are going to sit. Then we're going to go ahead and just pop these tins back in. They should go in nice and easy. So if you find yourself having to force it in, or it looks crooked or something, I would take it out and try again. Then we can go ahead and pop our slider boots back in. That one. Okay. If you have a little bit of trouble, you can use a little screwdriver or something to help push it in. Just be gentle because you don't want to poke a hole in the rubber. Then we're going to take our slider pins, give them a nice little coating of grease. I'm going to get some up around the edge here too. Just go ahead and slide it in there. Press in and you can get your boot to lock right on around the edge. We'll just wipe off the extra grease on the outside so we don't pick up any dirt, dust. And then you can do the same with the other one. Okay, it's time to put the new TRQ rotor on. I'm just going to set it up here, let the wheel studs hold on to it for me for a minute. I'm going to spray a little bit of brake parts cleaner onto a towel and just give it a quick wipe down. Get off any of the shipping grease or dirt we may have gotten onto it. Then we'll just flip it over. Slide it on the right way. Give this side a nice clean as well. And now all we're going to have to do is, since we loosened the parking brake shoes to get the old rotor off, we're just going to have to spin this one back down. Find that adjuster, and then we're just going to tighten it back up a little bit. Okay, so we just want to adjust the pad tension on here and then give the rotor a spin. Feel for a little bit of drag, not too much drag, but also not too little drag. And then once you're all done, you can go in and give your parking brake handle a pull, and it should feel nice and tight. If it's loose, you can just come back and do a little bit more adjusting of the tension. All right, and once you're done with the adjuster, make sure to not forget to put this little rubber boot back, because that's going to keep water and dirt and all that stuff on the outside of the rotor. Now we can go ahead and put the brake caliper bracket back on. We're just going to slide it into place like this. Take one of our bolts, put it through, and try to find the bracket. There we go. We'll just get it a little way in, and then put the other one in. So now we're just going to tighten them with a ratchet until they're bottomed out, and then we're going to come back and we're going to torque them. All right, then we're going to go ahead and torque these bolts, 17 millimeters. We are going to torque them to 65 foot-pounds. All right, so now we can go ahead and seat the pads into the caliper bracket. First, we're just going to take a little bit of brake grease, not too much, just enough so that it'll slide smoothly on the ears of the pads. There's one. And then we can just slide it right in here. You want your pads to go in nice and easy. If there's any resistance or you find yourself having to force it in, you might want to go back, take another look at either the tins or the bracket itself. You might have some more cleaning to do. All right, so then we can go ahead, grab our caliper, get it off the hook. And then before we put it back on, because these are brand new pads, they're nice and thick, we're going to compress the piston just a little bit. So I have a special tool for that. If you don't have this, you can use a C-clamp or other sort of clamp. And if you're going to do that, sometimes it's helpful to put one of the old pads right here to help spread out the tension. So we're just going to nice and slow give it a little squeeze. We're going to return the piston to just about even with the rest of the caliper surface. You don't want to push it too far, you don't want to push it too hard, because then you could cause a leak here, and then you're going to have to replace the whole caliper. All right, I'm going to make sure I have one of the bolts in my hand, and then we can go ahead, get it in position. I'm going to take a look at the hose, make sure it's not twisted or kinked, and then we're just going to slide it right on. It should go on nice and easy. Get it lined up with the sliders. And then I'll just put this bolt in to hold it in place. And go grab the other one. All right, I'm just going to go ahead and tighten these down with a 14 millimeter socket. And if the slider pin starts to spin on you while you're tightening those, you can take a 15 millimeter wrench and just hold it in place while you tighten it. Then we can just go ahead and torque these 14 millimeter bolts to 20 foot-pounds. All right, we are all set. Let's get the wheel back on. All right, we're going to get it seated on these wheel studs. I'm going to grab one of my lug nuts I've already got in the socket. I'm just going to go ahead and thread that on to hold it in place. I'll grab the rest. Okay, so we're just tightening these lug nuts as far as we can by hand, just snugging them in. and then we'll lower it down to torque them. Okay, we've got the vehicle down on the ground. Now we're just going to go ahead and torque these 21 millimeter lug nuts to 76 foot-pounds in a star pattern. And we're all done.